So not only in Canada and US, globally, so like 60% of like sex worker are migrant sex worker, right? So that like people immediately think about migrant sex worker equal to they are vulnerable, they are like in the like situation is like risk for exploitation of violence. But we know it's not true, right? So like the what make migrant sex worker be more vulnerable is because of racism. We know like white sex worker were in Thailand, so that they may not have similar of policing, because of white supremacy. They may work in like more like better income, they don't have so much problem of crossing border, right? So we know the challenge like faced by migrant sex worker is like of course homophobia, criminalization, but on top is like how racism play out, right? So the how when you cross the border that your rights being taken away because particularly the immigration policy will make you be more vulnerable. Like for example, in Canada, even people with work permit, they cannot work in sex industry. Otherwise, they can be arrested and deported. And so, and we know a lot of people because of, what a different kind of reason, like the gentrification, or because of war or because of the oppression they face in their hometown, so that they may want to move to other place to have better life or escape from like violence, whatever reason. But for racialized poor migrant and women and trans people, there is very limited platform that they can move to other country to work and survive, right? So the sex work become a powerful way, they can earn income, they can have social networks so that they can survive, like instead of only see sex work is like the harm, like as many people say, what we see when we work with community, that we see like how migration, and sex work give a lot of power and resources, and what make people vulnerable is not because of sex work and migration themselves, is how like racism, sexism, homophobia, like anti-migrant, that all like intersect with all the actual policy make people more vulnerable, and they are often being targeted. And as Chanel said, because of the panic of human trafficking, we know this is being like fabricated, is like to create the illusion, anti-trafficking is like something is like we need to address, create those moral panic. And then they expand the border, they expand the criminalization, right? So one of the example is Asian massage parlor. We work with the worker, and we have done a lot of research. Why people work in Asian massage parlor? Actually, many of them say they have better working condition than in factory. They can have better autonomy. Like they have better working hour, and they can take a break, and they can also more social network, better income, and they can rest when they wait for the client, right? As the person that difficult to speak English, so that is, and then they don't need to like escort, they need to keep communicate with clients. So, and then this many worker feel this is a better working place. But because of the anti-sex work group, like particular those have very racist idea, they say Asian women cannot speak English, that this must be trafficked, and they like as Chanel say, they keep changing the law to make the massage parlor become illegal. They also expand the border, right? So like that the like many city, if you want to get the license, you need to provide your immigration proof. And so often the immigration officer, police, and by law enforcement all came together because there is so many law can like regulate them. Recently, even the Minister of Labor, so because of the lobbying of anti-trafficking organization, they say, okay, now I recognize sex work is work. So that the Minister of Labor went to the like massage parlor and say, give me the information of your staff, the name, the all the document, because I need to protect the workers' right. But we know it's not protect the workers' right. Again, they use the anti-human trafficking like investigation to target the people. So like sex work and massage work for many worker is the powerful resistance, but because of like those like advocate particular against like migrant, against Asian, against sex work. So they use anti-human trafficking, and they are very successful. That's why in our book we call it like anti-trafficking industrial complex, because they got a lot of money, they become famous, they become the white savior, and then they can also work with politicians. Politicians also benefit because they don't need to do anything, right? So that they can use it to justify to give more and more funding for law enforcement, right? They can justify their policing and say, I protect you. So that's make the worker situation is like more challenging. And the like high criminalization and policing, of course, would lead to, the target by violence, right? We know that the partner may take the advantage of them because they know you are fear, of the law enforcement, even domestic violence, and also like the violence at workplace, people may take advantage of you and target you. So, and I think this is uh 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 like that is what we have been like experienced. But why we think it's important we talk about who are migrant sex worker, the condition of migration and sex worker is very different with people emergent, right? So like when you say migrant sex worker, you imagine, like we here also have US sex worker work in like Canada. If they are white, is the experience is very different if they are the black trans, right? So the level of policing and so that like hope people have chance to understand more. Chanel, like you want to add more?
Sure, yeah. And I'm also happy to, if people want to put questions into the chat, a link, that's like we're doing a big download here. Um, the thing I want to say is that the specter of child sexual abuse is actually one of the, maybe it is actually the most important rhetorical justification for the criminalization of the entire sex industry. So all sex workers, like that's a big industry. That's a lot of people doing a lot of different kinds of work, right? The sex industry includes everything from people trading sex inside of prisons for protection to adult film performers who are internationally famous. There's so much casual sex work. A lot of people are not firmly in or out of the sex industry. They sell sex to make ends meet in a month where money is running short. For some people, they're in the sex industry for decades. Like, for example, the people who are answering the phones at a massage parlor are often older immigrant women who worked in the sex industry when they were younger. And at 50, 60, they're too old, they're too tired, and they start answering phones. And the reason for that is actually because they have a very important skill, which is they know how to screen, right? They bring all of that experience in. What does a good sounding client sound like? What does a sketchy person sound like? Um, and so we're talking about a really broad range of relationships to the sex industry, but pretty much the entire criminalization of the sex industry, including that it's subject to a blanket travel ban. Most places in the world have a travel ban. And in the US, sex workers are subject to a travel ban. You can't enter the US within 10 years of having engaged in prostitution. And that's still then at the discretion of the immigration officers when you go to enter. And Canada's is even more draconian than that. You can't even work in legal parts of the sex industry. You can't serve drinks in a strip club as an immigrant. Only citizens can work in the sex industry. And the ostensible reason for that is protection, right? And it's specifically child sexual abuse, which is leveraged to explain why immigrants then have to break immigration laws, have to work underground, can't be a part of any labor union. And it's all justified as protection from child sexual abuse. But in fact, what all those things do is increase, those create the conditions for abuse and exploitation and violence, right? So the link to child sexual abuse is actually super important. Like the sex industry, everyone's impacted by it. And it doesn't matter if you're a 65-year-old immigrant grandma working the phones at a massage parlor, you're criminalized for the same reasons that that a 17-year-old selling sex on the apps is as well. Um, and in fact, people choose the sex industry. And so child sexual abuse is seen as like the only reason people sell sex, which is a really nice trick for not dealing with how shitty capitalism is and why people want to work in the sex industry instead of working in a factory or domestic work or a restaurant or retail. That's usually, I mean, most sex workers are like immigrant mothers. Like they are selling sex because it's their other labor options are garbage, including that they just can't get into the country. There is no legal pathway for working class immigrants from the global south. There's no way in except through these like brutally exploitative temporary foreign worker programs where you have to go pick strawberries or work in someone's house as a domestic. And a lot of people would rather sell sex, not because it's good, not necessarily because they like it, not necessarily because they enjoy it, but because it is a better option and they're being smart about the options available to them. And they're choosing the one that offers them the most autonomy and the best wages, and honestly, sometimes the best safety versus like working in an isolated field. And the rates of sexual abuse and sexual harassment in a lot of these jobs are really high, again because they're not protected, right? But child sexual abuse is this specter hanging over everything and justifying so much state surveillance and control and punishment and violence and expulsion and exclusion. Um, because they'll say things like, oh, the average age of entry into prostitution is 13, which is not true. But we can actually talk a little bit about why there are 13-year-olds in the sex industry when there are. They're not in the massage parlors, I can tell you that. Um, but there's this mythology around the relationship between child sexual abuse and sex work. Yes, totally. So Jaden put in the chat that um, those worker visas definitely create environments wherein sexual violence and rape culture thrives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for many people in the sex industry, they feel like they actually have better control and protection from that for example, compared to being a live-in caregiver, trying to fend off the husband of the family, they actually feel like they have better ability to protect themselves from unwanted sexual experiences in a massage parlor where they work with other people and they're screening, right? And they've got colleagues who they can also ideally like be screening out clients and have strategies for how to manage difficult or dangerous clients. Elaine, did you want to add?
Yeah, I think that is also very important because when you see sex work as the violence, you do not see the real like the violence, right? So and I think that is the issue when the sex worker experience violence at the workplace, then they do not recognize as violence because they say you're like do sex work, right? But I think it's very important to differentiate that so then we can address like the violence in the sex industry. We can find a way, like to give the support people have more power. They can negotiate the power. They can like change the working condition. And what we see more policing and criminalization actually is just make they are like the working condition is more vulnerable. And then some of them, like some of the worker after the raid, like particularly some of the like target of international students, so that they before they want to work in massage parlor, they can decide whether they do sex work or not, what kind of sex work, do they do, what form of sex work. But because of the raid, they cannot work anymore. They may need to go back to the abusive, partner, like to have sexual relationship even they don't want, and or like they may need to work in the workplace that they need to provide the service they don't want, right? So, and I think, and also that is like more difficult to screen the client when you are more like so one of the example in Newmarket and many city when they shut down the Asian massage parlor that make the worker become illegal, so that like to make them is no way they can negotiate and screen the client because they cannot have the communication because of avoid undercover. So then it's really put them in the more dangerous situation. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I just wonder, Chanel, because I have some pictures, so I don't know whether we already like would go to the Q&A like section. I don't know whether Jane, what do you think? Maybe I can show some of the pictures, so and then maybe to see what Chanel you want to add, and
Like
also
a
like what.
butterfly organizing and stuff?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Okay, so and then like maybe other folks can think about any like question you want to ask, like or share some of your insights, right? I think it's always valuable, yeah, have the the dialogue together, like yes. Let me share. So feel free to talk, Chanel, because I'm just thinking, sometimes it's hard on my, so that's why and anyone need like visual description may let us know so that we can describe more picture because sometimes I find a picture is like more. So yes, so this is butterfly. We use butterfly is because it's like no matter which way you cannot stop them and everyone is very unique. It's very important. It's like no, we don't need other people to rescue us and support us, right? Butterfly coming together become a strong, beautiful red umbrella that we can support and help each other. And so here is the brief introduction, like of the work of Butterfly. We still doing a lot of like outreach, like event advocacy, but we have like very limited resources. One of the things we keep need to do is like fundraising, how to support the work of Butterfly. And so this is the like legal system what migrant sex workers are facing. We call it carceral web, like municipal law, immigration law, criminal law, and how the anti-trafficking initiative bring everything together. But of course, like we know childcare protection, labor law, and also housing law is all none of them is protect sex worker are targeting them. So I really, really appreciate your group keep collecting stories. So it is one of the first story report we document the worker how they experience when the government say this is an anti-trafficking movement, how people being arrested, detained, and deported. So there are some image, and then we do art exhibition so that to show the reality. So when the worker was deported, they even do not allow to pack the stuff. So this is the rice cooker. It's symbolic, for Asian. Rice is very important, like represent you earn a living, she was deported, but her rice cooker is still here to share with other workers. So she was detained for 30 days and deported because the law enforcement say the judge say I need to protect you, from other traffickers. She even cannot get the bail. And so like $10,000 of like money and all the phone being seized, the people being locked and chained during the anti-trafficking investigation. And like you may remember like 5 years ago was Atlanta shooting. And Asian community have the huge mobilizing of anti-Asian racism. But we know that like the murder do not only kill the worker because of anti-Asian racism, but because of the anti-sexual hate. And so what happened in during the Asian community mobilizing against the anti-Asian racism, butterfly and sex worker are also being excluded. So this is some image about like how workers are targeting. I want to show some workers picture how they organize so that like they keep speaking out, doing protests. But we also have a lot of publication. We do a lot of like event, party, and also like build a connection. Butterfly also have a queer group to organize the Asian migrant queer sex worker, and then we have like beautiful community building, and we use a lot of artwork, and like we do massage on the street as a protest. Workers speak out, they are not traffic victim, particularly as we say the city hall 300 workers when they say I'm not traffic victim, I need my work. They use a lot of creative way to show the power and the fight in Newmarket. And because the worker was given ticket on their door, so we do the revenge. We will put the ticket on their city hall like to say they are racist, they are like targeting the worker. And so here is the like other consultation. One of the creative resistance is because the town of Newmarket, one of the city, they say if you want to do Asian massage, if you want to do massage work, you need to get the education credential. So that means low income Asian migrant were not able to get the license. We create the training at York University. They are able to get the credential that they can get the license. So they speak out and then so have a lot of like mobilizing anti-Asian racism. And I think we may also want to draw attention, like a lot of people know like how ICE is so problematic in US and Canada always sell the idea they are better, but it's not true. They hire more immigration, they expand the use of technology, and also they pass the law, that immigration can get all the data from different level of government, and then like to make like increase more like investigation, arrest, and deportation. But in the um, way they pretend they are more human, they are more like respect migrant rights. It's not true. They are still doing like the mass deportation. So just let you guys know. And then so that we also do a lot of um, building allyship. And then one of the event we are coming up is the May 12th and 23rd, in order to resist the anti-Asian racism, so that we organize our Asian Massage Festival. So this is some of the work we have been doing. So just want to share a little bit picture, maybe inspire like